Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Vortie here, and we're going to be jumping into the elite version of the Shadow of the Empire. And what I'm going to be doing is actually I'm going to be commentating over a video that I already recorded. So essentially what I did was I made a party of 4 here of my own units, and I'm just going to kind of like go through what's going on. So essentially I'm going in here with a party that I kind of picked and was kind of like deciding like what should I do. I picked 1 damage dealer and then 3 technically support units, and I used one of the support units as a tank. So as you can see here, I'm just starting the plant fight. I didn't record the other ones just because they're easy. Most people can take care of them. These are really the hard ones. So I'm kind of debating like what am I gonna do at the start here. Right off the bat, I made sure that Minfilia had provoke because I'm using her Fist of the Protection to heal my party. So you'll see here as once the fight initiates, how efficient this is. Like, it literally just heals the crap out of your party. Using your Stola to buff defenses, and Shelga just for fun, but it's not really necessary. And then Gilgamesh is literally my big damage dealer. So at the start here, I am just getting ready to debuff him, so I'm not really throwing any damage on him yet, just kind of testing the waters here to make sure. So see, Protection of the Gods, boom, party's back to full. Okay, so Ling is my debuffer. I brought her for debuffing, for MP control, and for being able to be a very good sustained support unit. I filled her up with as much MP as I could because I wanted her to be my sustainability support unit. So essentially that's pretty much what I did with her. I'm using your still literally just kind of sit there, so I'm just kind of testing here. Snow Petal, just testing the waters here to go. So I could actually do a lot more damage with Gilgamesh if I used Minfilia's call to attack. But I didn't do it. So here you go, Protection of the Gods, 1, 2, boom, party's back to full health. So you're kind of using this gimmick of the move from Protection, Fist of the Gods or whatever, to really abuse the system when you have a monster who has a lot of attacks or has extra body parts. So this fight actually ended up being a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Gilgamesh really does hit hard. This can also be done with Furion. If you have Odin and you have Blade Blitz and you gear up your Furion in a way that you have the variety of weapons and the max damage you can get with them, you can kill these guys with Blade Blitz just the same. Because I think Furion's Blade Blitz will actually hit just as hard, maybe just a little bit weaker. But again, it costs no MP, and he's a lot more beefier than Gilgamesh. And he's got a selection of gear that you can put whatever the hell you want on him. And he's got killer effects against plants as well. So he takes the, for this fight, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually wish I brought Furion instead of Gilgamesh. I think I actually would have had a lot more fun using Furion because of that. But whatever, for whatever reason, when I was building the party, I'm like, I need somebody who does AoE and ignores defense. I'm like, who should I bring? I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I haven't. Even though Gilgamesh was my first 5-star I ever got on global, I rarely used him. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna pick this bad boy up and I'll use him. So that's kind of why I ended up choosing him over Furion. So yeah, so there you go. This was a pretty simple clear. The alternatives you can do there is make sure that you debuff them, right? They're susceptible to blind, to confusion, to paralyzed, all those things. So if you have Ling, or if you're bringing Noctis along, you can use AoE fire, like the Fire Flask for Noctis to try and put some debuffs on them, or use the Dance of Death from Ling to try and just keep them debuffed. Like any debuff, really, you blind them, you benefit. If one of them misses, you just get to take less damage. It just makes it a lot easier to manage, right? So that's what it is for the Rampaging Antillian fight as well. It's just about taking care of the pieces so it's manageable. That's all it is. Even the best player can struggle against all of them if they're just gonna sit there and wail on your party without you doing some sort of mitigation, whether it's provoking him, debuffing him, or trying to kill one of them as fast as possible so that you take less damage over time. Okay, so the trash here, I was gonna try and actually farm some of the trash as you saw there, to like using Lance to get MP back, but then I was just like, forget it, because I have a tent. I'm like, you know what, let me just get to the boss and I'll use a tent. But either way, up to this point I'm still debating. I'm like, you know what, should I use like, am I just gonna like Lance my way all the way through all the MP? But then I was realizing, I'm like, man, I'm like, it's gonna take forever. We're just gonna kill it, as you can see here in a sec. I'm just gonna say forget it. Like, I'm just gonna use snow pedal. Just forget it. I'm done. I don't want to sit here and farm this crap when I do have a tent. Since we're also walking here, the items I would suggest you to bring is MP, tent, a remedy in case one of your units gets confused or paralyzed or whatever. But as you can see here, I'm looking at the things. I brought fish, a smoke bomb. I was just looking at it, like, everybody's full except like Link. Like I have to get, what a waste. I'm like, ah, whatever. I'll use the tent. There we go. Tent is done. So the way this part of the dragon fight is actually broken apart into two parts. I fight all the way up to a part where I think I ended up stopping it just as Y'shtola or Menphilia. One of them dies, but it was just taking too long, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna chop it into two parts. I'm gonna get him like 30% in, and then I'm gonna go and do the second part of the video where I'm like, you know, maybe like the last 30% of the dragon, make it easier. In the meantime of that like pause there, I went and I made some coffee, I ate and stuff, like but anyways, just want to let you guys know. So in this part here, I'm thinking, like, should I do Flame Guard or should I do Provoke? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what, I'm like, the fire damage is a lot more, it's gonna hurt a lot more than the physical. So I'm like, you know what, I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it, and then we'll just gonna use Protectra and Shelgra, just to kind of like buff the party, and you know, we'll take the initial hit, and then we'll do Provoke round, a second round. Though I wasn't thinking at this part of the time, that's why I brought Carbuncle on Ling. She was my support for what do you call it, casting Barfariga. So I thought of this strategy in my head before I decided to make this. So at the start here, I'm just kind of testing. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, should I be using something cost less MP to kind of, you know, just kind of keep going and not stopping? Like, what do I do? So even at this point, I still haven't, even though I know that she's got Leader's Disposition, I'm still not thinking about Leader's Disposition. And you'll see Y'shtola ends up actually getting confused a few times because I just wasn't thinking. And it was one of those things is, I'm recording it, I wasn't talking, but I'm like, you know what, I don't want to make the video too long, even though I'm recording. So I'm just gonna, you know, try and keep things as fast as possible. So I wasn't thinking clearly, and I ended up making some mistakes, but whatever. It's doable with mistakes or not. So I'm showing here, I'm like, you can do attack and magic, you can also do defense. So I'm just testing things out right now. What am I gonna do? So the strategy is if you know you're gonna take the damage, you should break the magic so that you take less magic damage. Okay. Otherwise, if it doesn't matter, like you're gonna be going for the damage, then you want to break the defense, right? Especially if you're using a physical unit to do all the damage, right? So call to attack. This is what you want to do before you make your big damage dealing dude attack. Make sure that he's got that buff on him. If you're using my strategy, make sure that it's on your damage dealer before you attack. And before you attack, make sure that you use your breaker, in my case Ling, make sure that she does the defense break. So that way you can take benefit of that. So I do a few tests here to kind of, you know, see how much damage am I really going to be doing. So I buff them and I attack, and I'm like, you know, how much am I gonna hit for? 74,000, like 68,000. Like, man, that's pretty rough. I'm like, I was expecting to hit in the hundreds. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what? Even if I break him, he might only end up doing like, you know, 80 or 90,000. I'm like, you know what? Let's test this out. So I do defense and spirit this time, and I'm like, I'm gonna go right for it to see exactly how much of a difference I'm going to do using snow pedal. Before I did the tri attack, boom, 151,000, 100,000 damage more, almost 100,000 damage more, just by breaking the unit. So in conclusion, breaking the dragon is a must if you really want to get this fight over and done with as fast as possible. As far as the strategy goes for him, I'm using the strategy where it's just making sure that you stay alive. Don't worry about the healing, don't worry about the confusion, don't worry about any of those things. Just go balls deep in there and just attack. But Menphilia does have a confusion reduction thing where it makes your units immune to confusion for 3 turns, so you can definitely utilize that if you remember to use it, unlike me, because I'm a dummy. I'm looking at it right there, like Leader's Disposition. I'm not even touching it. I'm so silly willy. But again, it's not really a big priority till you get close to 50% when he can starts casting it like more frequently. So, but either way, if you do bring Minfilia and she's level 100, you will have access to that, which is going to make the fight that much easier. If you keep that in mind, the disposition, you don't have to bring any confusion mitigating equipment, which opens up like an ability slot for you or a material slot for you, you know, accessory, wherever you were going to place it, it opens up those slots for you so you can actually focus on the fight itself, right? So you can just be like, you know what, I'm just going to go for the damage. This is a part of my cycle, no problem. And you just kind of go with it, okay? So let's see here. So again, I'm doing some okay damage there. My buffs are fading. Because Gilgamesh doesn't have any way of getting MP back. Well, he does have Lance, but I wanted to save Lance for a little bit later. So I'm just using the chocolate. That's why I brought it. It gives you 150 MP. You know, pop it and squat it. Why not? Alright, so at this point, I'm literally just rinsing and repeating the process. Casting Flame Guard, make sure Flame Guard is up, making sure Provoke is up, making sure that your Stola is casting at least Protectra. I do cast Protectra and Shelga at times, just in case the Flame Guard does fall off, or Barfire does fall off, that I do have something there that can help at least mitigate that damage that I'm about to take to the face, right? So make sure you kind of think of that as well. So here I'm thinking like, you know what, I'm going to give back some MP. And I'm like, then after I looked at it, I'm like, who am I giving back MP? Your Stola's full, Minfilia's full, Gilgamesh just took chocolate. I'm like, so silly. It was a poor decision being made. So what am I going to do here? Am I going to cast Protect? I called it. It's almost like I knew what I was going to do. I called it. So I'm taking a look at him like, okay, fire is up, provoke is missing, so I'm gonna go get that provoke back up. Get that provoke moving. And then, at one point actually, I was thinking, like, should I try and see if I can get like the 15% chance of blind to actually land? Which was the stupidest thought process in my head. I was like, this is so stupid. And I'm like, am I really gonna take that chance while I'm recording to try and do that? So I think this is the... No, not yet, actually. We're still good for a little bit. But I do break a threshold, and then Menphilia's defense was down, or something was down, and she just took a... Just got slapped silly. So at this point, I'm just using my Espers and Limit Bursts to mitigate damage as it comes up, because I'm like, you know what, the fight's going to be a little bit longer, might as well use the moves to mitigate as much damage as possible during different turns, right? So like, you know what, I'll use Espers, I'll use the, like right now I attacked with your Stola to try and get the Limit Burst for her, which is a really bad move, because now I'm focusing on Limit Burst and those other crap, and I'm not paying attention that I'm not using the other things. Right, I'm just like, man, this is so silly. I don't do like the defense buff. I don't do this. I don't do that. I miss out. Super silly. Dual cast. I think I did Kiraja Protectra. Protectra, yeah. Very paranoid. Even though Protectra's up, I can see it. Just paranoid. Ling. What are we doing with Ling? We're gonna do defense, yeah. And then Snow Petal. Doing only 85,000, even though his defense is broken, but I'm not buffed, so I'm not getting that additional, you know, 40,000 damage from the Menphilia buff. So I'm like, you know what, I gotta get that buff back on my dude, because I'm hitting like a freaking bag of potato chips. It's just not cutting it anymore, man. It's just not cutting it. I got buffed and then did less damage because I rushed and I didn't do the defense break. So I'm like, you know what, I will do the magic break because I'm gonna take the hit. I know I'm gonna take the hit, so I'm going defensive mode. I'm like, man, I'm going defensive mode. I gotta try and save myself here. But the problem is, he's like just pounding into me. I also, what do you call it, I did break a threshold, so he does that AoE damage. So here you go, freaking your Stola, confused. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, that's a problem. I can just fix that. And I'm like, logistic support. I'm like, this is AoE. And I think I clicked on Menphilia. Menphilia cast it on herself. Like a dummy, I'm like, damn it. I'm like, it's so stupid. I'm like, I casted it on myself. Whatever. I'm like, we're gonna go on. I'm like, this is why I have a support unit who can do it. But I don't realize that till second turn that I can actually just remove Confuse with Ling. And this guy's out of MP. Can't do that. Can't do this. I'm like, we'll just do Armor Break. Still hits like a boss though. Boom, 42. Boom, 41. As long as I'm hitting more than 50,000 to try and negate that 50,000 hit points that he heals himself, I'm in the clear. So I'm thinking, like, what the hell am I gonna do? I'm like, I gotta do something. I'm like, I gotta do Flame Guard. And I'm looking at it again. And I cast it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, yes, I figured it out. I'm gonna live. But as you can see, Minfilia is really low. So I'm like thinking, like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I'm using an elixir. I'm gonna try and save her ass. I'm gonna try and save her ass. I'm like, and this guy's just gonna use his limit burst and hope he doesn't die. that's the plan right now. No fire buff, no nothing, no buffs. Everything is off. And freaking your Stola gets confused again, but she was good this time. I'm like, forget you, your Stola. I'm on fire buffs going up. I'm like, well, what do I do? And I realize here I'm looking at fire. I'm like, damn it. Like, you know what? I'm gonna take the damage to the face. I might as well try and avoid as much as possible. So I lived. Casted Holy. We lived. Provoke. And we're gonna go in there. Do double Kiraja to try and catch up. And at this point, I don't know what went wrong, but I'm literally gonna get my butt smacked. Actually, well, only one character dies. I don't end up losing or anything, but I'm actually watching this for the first time too now that I'm like commentating on it. So I really wonder, like, what did I do? Flame Ball, Screech, Revitalize. So everything is looking still pretty good. I still have my fire buff up. I got Provoke up. I'm gonna buff Gilgamesh so that he can do Snow Petal. I'm gonna go down here. I'm gonna break his defense. Okay, breaking the defense. I take the damage. So I'm thinking here, because everything is still up. Like fire is resistance is up. She does have 3400, so that's flaming a ball of fire because of the 50% break. Screech, Revitalize, Pulverize. So used Pulverize, which brought her down 90%, and then another attack right after that and killed Minfilia. And I'm like, mother F, like what is going on here? So in that case, I'm like, alright, well, you know what, that's fine. I ended up pausing the video here, and then what you guys are seeing is actually the second part now, where I'm actually kind of fighting the dragon. Alright. So this actually leads us right into the ending. So I'm only going to commentate for a little bit more here. He's at 30%. And then I do talk about it at the end of the fight as well. So I'm just kind of looking at the buffs here, making sure everything is clear. Make sure all my buffs are up. So for that short part that I was like, the video was gone, I literally just used I used Ling to do an AoE heal. I used Gilgamesh to use an elixir and then just bring them back to life. And then I just continued the same crap I was doing that you guys saw at the beginning of the video. So at this point, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm like literally about to clear it. Less than 20% life left. I'm like, let's just clear this bad boy up. All right. So I'm gonna leave this ending here for you guys to watch. Enjoy the rest of the video, and at the end of the video, I show you my units. I tell you exactly why I picked those units, why I brought them. So stick around for the ending. Okay, so that was the event there, guys, as you saw. It's a little bit like repetitive. It takes some time, so it's best to take it slow, kind of like the Kefka fight before. Just kind of sit down and kind of go through it. So I didn't bring any units that were other people's units. I kind of just decided to build my own party, so that way I could control exactly what happened. So we're gonna jump right into taking a look at the characters and what they were equipped with. So see, there you go, party of 4 or less, depending only on your own units. So we're gonna jump on to our units here. Yes, thank you. So let's take a look at Gilgamesh first, okay? So what I went for is you could have actually done black chokers on everyone, but now that I think about it more, I really should, because of how what I used Menphilia for, I don't think I really needed a black choker on any of my units. It would have been actually smarter to put something else that would help me maybe boost my damage a little bit more. So what I could have used before, or actually instead of this, I would have probably used something like Ifrit's Claw, giving me a little bit more fire resistance and giving me more damage. But the fire resistance isn't really required because of the buff. As long as you had about 60% or 70%, you were going to be okay with additional buff. You would be resisting it anyways. But that's probably what I should have done. Really, as long as his attack is as high as you can possibly get, he's going to be your biggest damage dealer. So get one unit, beef him up as much as you can with gear. The alternative to Gilgamesh here that I would probably suggest if you don't have Gilgamesh would be Furion. So most people do have Furion. He would be a good alternative to use for this part of the event. Again, giving him the equipment, like weapons and geared wise for his weapons to be his highest damage dealer, right? And then you're going to be taking advantage of his Dragon Killer and stuff like that. So that would be the ideal point you want to get here. Then wearing Imperial Helm, Flame Mail is going to be beneficial, and any additional fire resistance you can get on him would be really, really good. Obviously, dual wield is going to be very, very sufficient for anyone who uses them. If you've been beating the other events like Gilgamesh and have been playing for a little while, you probably have a few TMs. Hopefully you ended up grabbing Blade Mastery or Dual Wield or Gilgamesh's Gloves, so that way if you have those units, then that's going to help you kind of set up this fight as well to make it a little bit easier. Obviously, if you don't have these, it's just the fight's going to take longer. Anybody can defeat it, even a free-to-play party. Just got to be a little bit more strategic about your gear selection. Alright, so again, this is the damage dealer I chose. You could have literally picked anyone. I picked Gilgamesh just because personally I haven't used him in a long time, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to use Gilgamesh for a while, and he had an array of gear he can use, so I didn't have to really worry about too much about what he can equip and when he couldn't. Alright, the next unit I brought here was Ling. She was my support unit to benefit Menphilia, because I used Menphilia as a tank. So let's actually talk about Menphilia first, so that way you guys will understand how I set it up. So I was bringing Menphilia as a tank specifically for the use of Protection of the Gods. As long as she gets a hit, she gets the damage on herself, she's going to actually heal the whole party. So as long as she receives physical damage, she heals the party. So you provoke and you get the scratches, she ends up healing. As you saw through the fight there, she wasn't always healing because she wasn't always getting targeted. Most of the time Gilgamesh was getting targeted or someone else. And at that one point I actually ended up having my healer die, and then I ended up essentially, instead of recording everything or me trying to get back into the process, I stopped recording at that point, brought everybody back up to life, and then kind of chipped away till we got to the last little portion of the fight, and then started recording again because it just took a long time. But anyway, so that's kind of how I set up my Menphilia, giving her hit points. If I had better hit points things, I would have put them on her. But that's pretty much how it is. The gear you could use alternatively for her would be the gear that you got crafted for her. It does just the same thing, but for myself, what I thought would be most beneficial is to make sure that she's got as much MP as possible. So we're wearing something like Vestment of the Mind is going to be beneficial, or Solomon Ring is going to be beneficial, so that way you don't have to worry about her MP. I do have both of them. I have the Vestment of the Mind and the Soluna Ring, and I split them between the two characters that I thought were going to be healing the most. So I gave Menphilia the armor, and then instead I gave Menphilia patches because she was going to be taking those additional hits. This gives me another chance of getting like a little bit of hit points, and on top of that getting at least 10 MP per counter if it does trigger, right? And then again, I'm just pretty much picking up gear that is giving me defense and hit points. Again, you could switch these up to give you a little bit more beefiness depending on which route you want to head down. If you want her to be the tank, then you can go down this route. Honestly, if you do it this way, with Protection of the Gods, she's literally like a Kiraja healer tank. Like literally, as long as she keeps triggering the Protection of the Gods, you can keep your party up all the way. As you saw during the fight with the plant, she kept my party up majority of the time on her own because of how much damage she was taking, how often it was triggering. So alternatives, if you had more TMs, if you don't want, if you're like okay with the fire resistance, you could have switched it up and done like something else. You could have picked up like Aegis, just any shield that she has it. But like again, I personally went with Flame Shield. Could have gone with Aegis if I really wanted to, but it does take up a materia slot, so you want to be considerate of that. If you don't have Heavy Shield or equipped Heavy Shield, then what you could do is you could farm the story mode and get equipped Light Shield, and then get the Dragon Shield as well and equip that as well. It'll do just the same stuff. Alright, now back to Ling. So Ling was my support unit for my Minfilia because I was going to be using her as a tank. I figured I would have another character that would be standing around in case they got confused or paralyzed to do that, and as well as at the end of the event, making sure that I had a unit that could keep reducing the dragon's defense so that I could do as much damage as possible. So as you saw there, I did a few tests there in the video because I wanted you to see exactly how big of a difference the defense break made. And as you saw there, fully buffed up and everything, Gilgamesh was only hitting for about 70,000, whereas when it was debuffed, he was hitting for like 130, 150. So there's a substantial jump in damage. So essentially, you really want to have a unit that's going to help you keep him debuffed. And again, the reason I took this strategy is I didn't really care about his healing. I didn't really care about any of those abilities. My only concern really was confusion. Other than that, I'm just straightforward and just go for the kill. Don't care about the 50,000 reheal. I could have changed that up by giving Gilgamesh maybe an axe instead of Excalibur, and it would have solved me that. It could have actually been a lot faster. So if you look at it here, he's wearing Excalibur right now. His damage is boosted up really high because of the large sword. But if I ended up putting, like, let's say a great axe here, right, it's gonna drop down and then replace this with like another 20% or something. Let's see if I can have some. It's kind of give you a relative idea of the jump. So we got hit points and attack. Where are my other 20%? What are you? You could have put on Poach too, got a little bit more damage. Could have put on Successor on him as well. A little bit of fire resistance and some attack as well. Reducing like that whole thing. I have a 30% right up in the front here. I guarantee it. There it is. So I'm going to pick up this 30%. So I could have went with something like this. And then the 50 damage would have been easily subsidized by the fact that I was now dealing water damage as well, which means he wasn't healing, so the fight would have actually been sped up a little bit. So if you do have Viking Axe or something like that, utilize it, right? I didn't take it just because I was testing a completely different strategy. I just wanted to make sure that it works, plus because I was recording, I just wanted to keep it simple and pick up something that if you did get TMs, those would be the TMs you would get. Not everybody has those TMs. So she is a support unit for them, and that's what she was doing. Make sure that she's got enough MP so that she can keep casting her debuffs, and then if she needed to, she can also remove confusion or poison or give back some MP if needed, as you saw throughout the fight. Second knife was there for fun. Same thing, I brought the Great Mage's Robe for the MP, gold armlet for the MP. I put the 20-sided die on there just in case she ever got targeted, which was really rare. I don't think she took any damage at all. And as far as the materials go, I put everything as far as MP on her, because like I said, support unit, and then Successor for a little bit more fire resistance so that she wouldn't get destroyed there. And then as my healer, what I ended up bringing was your Stola. She is a free to play. Normally I bring Refia. I've been bringing Refia for a long time. She's my favorite healer. She's fully potted and everything. But I wanted to actually use something that people actually have. So most people have your Stola, most people have Minfilia. If you don't have them leveled up, then that's really your own fault, because they're phenomenal units. You can see how well they go together. Especially if you got the Fist of the Protection on Minfilia, you are in like the gold. So obviously the gear that they're wearing is mostly TMs. Actually all of these are TMs. So the Dreamwalker, we got Black Cowl I just put on there for the defense and the spirit. Marina Bastir for the resistance, 30% magic. I was gonna put light shield on her, the dragon shield, but I chose not to. I just left it as is, and instead I just went hit points, MP, with a little bit of spirit and defense from the staff. And then I ended up going with the Ring of the Lucii for fun as well, in case she ever got targeted, because I didn't really have the faith in Menphelia to be able to kind of stay alive. So I figured, you know what, if the healer got targeted, there's a chance that she will get some MP back as well. Same thing with Saluna Ring. Plus there's 20% evasion on here, so it kind of gives me that little bit of life. So that's kind of the characters I brought. My overall strategy is exactly as you guys saw, is trying to keep all the hate on Menphelia. That's why she's wearing Golem. And then helping with the support as far as debuffs, maintaining MP. Ling is there. For healing, I brought Y'shtola. I gave her Ifrit just to make sure that she has as much fire resistance so she doesn't die, because she was literally my only healer. But at this point, like I said, instead of having the black choker on him, I could have put the black choker on her. But honestly, you don't really need any of those things for removing what do you call it, confusion, if you really just used Menphelia efficiently, as I figured out later in the fight as I played it a little bit more, because I thought of the strategy, but then I didn't really test it till I actually got to it, because Menphelia is immune to confusion and stuff like that. You can just utilize her abilities a little bit better. So she's got a move down here called, where the hell is it? Where are you? Leader's Disposition. She boosts confusion resistance for all allies for 3 turns. So the way her cycle worked for me is I would round 1 provoke. Round 2, I would go with what do you call it? Flame Guard or Flame Shield or whatever. But you can actually, because of Carbuncle, you can actually have somebody else cast the first layer of Barfayara. If you have good enough fire resistance, you'll be fine. So you could literally go round 1 provoke, round 2 Leader's Disposition, round 3 the single attack buff, so that your damage dealer is hitting as hard as they can. And then from then on, you can put the Flame Guard up, so you have the higher resistance, so 70%. And then from there on, it's just like a rinse repeat style of move. Make sure that provoke is up. As long as provoke is up, make sure that the call to attack is up on your main damage dealer, and then make sure that you are casting Leader's Disposition so that your other units don't get confused. Leader's Disposition probably takes the highest roll on that. It's provoke and Leader's Disposition. As long as those are up, you're going to be in the clear. And because your Ling or your support unit, whoever you decide to bring, is going to be using Carbuncle, they will also have Barfayara. In case you just can't get to it with Menphelia, just put Barfayara, 50%, right? It's better to have that 50% than not to have it at all, because it could make a difference. As far as Y'shtola goes, I used her to cast Protectra, to cast Shelga, and make sure that she's healing whenever she needed to. I used the Suna a few times, but she relatively stayed at full MP. And then again, like I said at the start, I chose Gilgamesh as my damage dealer and gave him Odin for Dragon Killer. Alright guys, so hopefully this helped you guys a little bit. The video is a little bit wonky. I normally don't do these kinds of videos, but that is kind of how it is. I did a little bit of, what is it called? Commentary, right? During the video, just kind of saying what I'm doing, but you know what? The ending here is kind of the conclusion of the fight. So if you want any tips or tricks, let me know in the question, or let me know in the comment section below what kind of units you have. Do you have units like this, or what kind of units you have, and maybe I can help you try and formulate a party. But again, my characters are fully TM'd out, and the fight went a lot faster, but I realized that really you don't need any of the TMs to make any of this plausible. It's gonna take a while. Just like the Kefka fight, these fights take a little bit longer if you want to get that additional reward. Is it worth it? Are you gonna miss out? No, your 15% MP is not something that's gonna make your game worse or whatever. So yeah, just keep in mind, anytime you're dealing with a percentage of any type of material, it's based off the base stat of your unit. So if your unit had weak MP and you put on 15% MP, you're gonna see nothing on it. But if you boost up your unit MP, like you pot them or whatever, you're going to see a better result, right? So just keep that in mind. Alright guys, thank you so much for sticking around. If you found this any helpful at all, hit that like button, subscribe button, whatever jiggles your wiggles. And I will see you guys in the next video. This is Vortie, and I'm out of here. Peace!